Hello everybody. Well, after spending countless hours thinking about and mentally planning how I would go about building a new wind vane for my boat, I finally went ahead and here in Trinidad I was able to get the parts, PVC pipe that I needed to turn my idea into reality. And that's what this little short video is about. What I'm going to do is a quick run through of the materials or parts that I use to create this thing. Now the first little clip here, picture, shows the round bar. Now I recycled that or used it from the old one. It's approximately 16 inches long, half-inch diameter stainless steel. Please realize that the materials that I used are not specifically needed. Say the material, this is not cast in stone. So anything that'll work is fine. All the stuff is plenty strong enough, not a problem. Now I reused this half-inch stainless steel bar because I had it. But you could use anything, 1/4 inch, 3/8, half-inch. Also, I'm not going to bother with trying to do everything in metric and imperial measurement. You should be able to do the conversion in your head. Really, it's pretty simple stuff. I'm an American, so I'm familiar with American pipe sizes, tubing sizes, things like that. And that's why I wanted the parts that I got here, the tubing. Because the 1.5" PVC fits nicely inside of 2" PVC with a little bit of slack. So it makes it easy to rotate the 1.5" PVC inside of the 2" PVC. Anyway, back to the first picture here. So that round bar could be anything. I wouldn't recommend aluminum because of the surface corrosion factor, and certainly not galvanized steel because it's too rough. But any grade of stainless, bronze, brass. I guess you could even use hard copper tubing if you wanted to, or copper pipe actually, not tubing. Tubing is soft annealed so it bends. It's used for refrigeration and stuff like that. Copper pipe is hard annealed so it's much stiffer. Anyway, that's the first thing, is the material for the rod. Now, what is the Wind Vane blade made from? Once again, anything that works. I happen to make mine out of what's commonly referred to in the U.S. Door skins. This is the 3 laminate thin plywood, about an 1/8 inch thick, that's used on interior doors for houses. And it's readily available to big hardware stores like Home Depot or Lowe's. And it's relatively inexpensive. Throw a couple coats of oil-based primer on it, and then oil-based enamel. Paint it any color you want, or varnish it if you want, like the wood grain. Doesn't really matter. You can also use that ribbed corrugated plastic that they make greenhouses from. I believe that's what Monitor uses for their Wind Vane blades, but to make it stiff enough, they put full-length wooden dowels in at least 2 of the channels. That would also be suitable. The corrugations are about a 1/4 inch square between the 2 layers of plastic. So you just have to find pre-made dowel stock that is kind of a slight force fit, and just jam it up inside the two of the corrugations should make it plenty stiff enough. Like I said, anything that'll work is fine, but you don't want anything that's too heavy. That's why I like the door skins. It's plenty stiff enough, plenty strong enough, and relatively inexpensive. Now the next thing is how do you attach the blade to the shaft so that when the blade swings back and forth, it turns the shaft. Well, I just happened to use some stainless steel stuff that I had on the boat that I picked up over the years along the way. Pretty much anything that you can get will work for this. The big trick is being able to ensure that when you install it on the blade, it pinches down on the shaft without slipping. If you used brass or bronze rod and use some brass or bronze flat strap, you could actually have it brazed or silver soldered onto the shaft so it didn't slide on the shaft. So, do whatever works. It's the best thing that I can tell you. This is what I had, and I made it work. There are lots of other things that could be done. That's true for most of the things that I build like this. If you have to make adaptations due to availability of local material, feel free. Like I said, there's nothing cast in stone about doing this whole thing, except perhaps for the fact that the pipe that carries the wind vane blade must be able to rotate inside of the pipes that are used as the mounting. And they should turn fairly easily. I think the difference in diameter between the outside diameter of the 1.5 inch and the inside diameter of the 2 inch is slightly less than 1/8 of an inch. So it's a loose enough bit to turn easily, but not so loose that it's sloppy. This crossbar I made a long time ago. It's essentially a piece of starboard that I picked up years and years ago, before I even launched this boat back in 2010. It's stiff enough, it's strong enough, and it's a little bit flexible. The big thing is I have to drill a hole for the shaft to pass through, and it should be the same diameter. The hole should be the same diameter as the shaft. And then from where the hole is going out parallel to the long edges, I just used a saber saw and made a cut going in each direction about 2 inches. And drilled a 1/4 inch hole all the way through across the width. And put 1/4 inch stainless steel bolts in there so that I can tighten those bolts. The space from the cut allows the plastic to compress slightly when the bolts are tightened, and that tightens the shaft, tightens the arm on the shaft so the shaft can turn that arm. Also remember, the loads involved here are very, very minimal. We're talking ounces or grams of force. But you don't want that stuff to slip, because then you lose the orientation of the cross arm and or the blade. So it's important that it stays where you set it. But I like my method because if something really gets jammed up, it will give and slide rather than break. Now the material I use for the control lines is many years ago. I think it was on this boat. I was in American Samoa for hurricane season, and they were still running a couple of purse seiner boats out of there, and they had a commercial fishing boat supply store there, and I bought this big old roll of nylon. It's about 4 millimeter or something like that. It's used to repair the big heavy-duty fishing nets. Anyway, it was really cheap, like $20 for 600 or 800 feet or something like that. I still have some of that left, 14, 15 years later. Granted, the nylon stretches a little bit, especially when it's brand new, but the slack can be taken out. Once again, anything that works is fine. You just don't need anything real heavy duty like 1/2-inch Dacron or something. Small stuff, 4, 5, maybe 6 millimeter diameters. You know, that's like a 3/16 to 1/4 inch line is plenty strong enough for the loads that are being transmitted. Why I wanted the 1.5" and the 2-inch, because the 1.5" fits inside of the 2-inch and rotates freely. And the standard PVC pipe fittings, I had to use a T at the top with a couple of short pieces of 2-inch. It's just stuck in there, it's not glued, and you don't want to use screws to hold it in place, because the ends of the screws, even quite short ones like 1/2 inch, would stick out far enough to interfere with the rotation of the 1.5" pipe. If you're real adventurous, you could use PVC cement and glue it together. I never bothered with that on any of the stuff that I built. Anyway, that in the picture there, you see this is the upper bracket. It's attached to the backstay that supports the upper end of the course setting shaft. Now the lower support bracket is kind of the same as the upper one, except that the tube coming out of the bottom of that T is longer, and it goes down to just above the block that I have mounted to turn the control lines going aft. The course setting tube, the 1.5" tube, does not come all the way down to the bottom of this 2-inch diameter tube, or pipe I should say. I keep saying tubing, but it's all pipe sizes. It stops, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches above the bottom of the 2-inch pipe. One thing that's crucial is in that the course setting, the tube that's used for, or the pipe that's used for the course setting, has a piece of 2-inch pipe screwed to it, so the 2-inch pipe rotates with the 1.5" pipe, and that's a stop to keep the 1.5" pipe from sliding down inside of the 2-inch pipe too far. Now, what you can't really see in the picture, but in that T, the upper part of the T has a very short piece of 2-inch pipe that's flush with the end of the T, that's pushed down inside the T, and the stop collar, call it a thrust bushing if you want to, rests against that. That's necessary because otherwise that piece of 2-inch pipe that's attached to the 1.5" course setting pipe will slide down inside of the upper end of that T. You don't want that because it'll bind up. Now that the stopper is also attached to the course setting pipe with just I use these little 1/2-inch long number 8 stainless steel panhead screws. Work just fine. Plus I put a couple of strap eyes on there to attach the lines which I ran to the cockpit, so I can rotate the course setting tube from the cockpit instead of having to climb out of the cockpit and go back aft and adjust the course setting tube to the proper angle for the apparent wind. One thing you'll probably also notice is that not quite horizontal pipe coming out of the T to my stern rail. I did that to keep the T from rotating when the course setting pipe is turned, and also to stiffen everything up so it doesn't wobble around so much, because even though it's my backstay is 5/16 stainless steel wire, 1x19, it still has some flex in it, and it's hard to get everything from a large diameter, the 2-inch pipe, attached to a 5/16 diameter polished stainless steel wire without rotating around the wire. So I added that pipe in there to keep that T from rotating, and also to keep it from woggling around too much. Now, this may not be super clear, but this is a double shiv Harken bullet block. I added a shackle to it and just stuck it through the void in the aft, or the backstay turnbuckle, and then stuck a 1/4-inch bolt in there. Works fine. You don't have to use anything as exotic as a Harken bullet block, because I bought a new one here in Trinidad, and it was quite expensive. Maybe in the US they're not as expensive, but you certainly don't need a ball bearing Harken bullet block. There may be other small double or use 2 single blocks that would be suitable. You just want to make sure the shivs turn pretty freely, so as not to add any kind of drag into the system that would slow down or inhibit the response of the wind vane and the trim tab. And this is how I attach the upper T. That's a big old stainless steel bulldog clamp, and you can't see it very well in the picture, but aft of the backstay and being clamped to the backstay is a piece, actually I use an old 5/16 bolt, flathead bolt, to cut the head off, so it's threaded the full length. And in the notch in the T, you can see that the wire slips over that inside the notch in the T at the top and the bottom of the opening. That bolt is just long enough to extend from the top to the bottom. And tightening the bulldog clamp on there keeps the upper T from rotating. Was a bit of had to do a bit of experimentation to find something that would hold that T in the correct fore and aft orientation. I'm thinking that bolt may not be enough, and I might get a piece of 5/16 all thread, put it in there, and then add 2 more bulldog clamps, one above and one below the T, some distance, to keep that upper T from rotating, and then to hold the whole thing so that the backstay stays in the slots in the T. Just a couple of black tie wraps works fine. Once again, the loads imposed on this whole system are quite minimal, and my old system probably went through at least 5 typhoons, including sailing through the edge of a typhoon in the North China Sea, coming from Hong Kong back to the Philippines. So, the wind vane blade, I finally got rid of the old one because it had been busted up pretty bad. Got somewhat damaged in Typhoon Odette. That was a year and a half, a little more than a year and a half ago, when I was in Cebu. It had 85 knot winds for about 3 hours in the middle of the night, and the fluttering on that wind vane blade over that period of time kind of damaged the material, but it was already been exposed out in the environment for at least 10 years, so I got pretty good lifespan. And I had enough material when I made those that I made the first one, then just circled around it with a pencil and made 3 more. So that original one I finally got rid of because it was busted up pretty bad, and put a new one on. Major investment, right? No. Okay, I'm going to write up just a simple text file. I'll put it in the description of the parts that I used. None of the parts absolutely have to be used the same as material that I used. except for the fact that the course setting axis tube has to fit inside of the tubes that are used for the bracket and be able to turn freely. So you can set the course, because of course the wind vane blade has to be pointing into the apparent wind. And the way the wind vane, you see, is sitting on the boat, the edge of the blade that's pointing aft or facing aft is the leading edge. That is the edge that gets turned into the apparent wind, not the edge behind the course setting axis. That would disturb the airflow. Also realize that unlike the commercially available wind vane units, I'm thinking of a Monitor or Aries type, where you can rotate the wind vane blade around 360 degrees, keep going in the same direction or the other direction indefinitely. You cannot do that with this system. You can only turn it a maximum of about 180 degrees. So I use the aft orientation at 0 degrees, and I can rotate it right and left. Normally I would rotate it no more than about 135 degrees on either the port or starboard, which would be having the apparent wind at about 45 degrees on up port or starboard tack. So you do have to remember that is one limitation of this setup. Now, the control lines go down from that white plastic cross arm. I've got a slot cut into the course setting axis tube. The lines go in that slot inside the 1.5-inch pipe, come out the bottom, and then turn aft to the tiller cross arm on the trim tab shaft through that small double block. So the whole system is really very simple, quite inexpensive. I'm sure that I don't have the PVC pipe. I bought a new piece of 2-inch, a new piece of 1.5-inch here in Trinidad. The T's and other short pieces I already had from the old wind vane. Like I said, with T's, some stainless steel screws, a couple of stainless 1/4-inch stainless steel bolts. All of that stuff together is less than $100 US. The bullet block, the Harkin double bullet block, I bought a new one here, was quite expensive. That's why I say you don't really need to get one that expensive. And the one I wound up using, I already had one. So the new double bullet block is being used to turn the control lines, the course setting control lines that go to the cockpit. So whether or not that's necessary depends on your boat. Now, I prefer an auxiliary rudder. On my boat, I can't really use a servo tab like a Monitor or an Aries type wind vane, and the commercially available units with the wind vane blade and the auxiliary rudders, they'll run up to $6,000–7,000 with the mounting bracket. My whole system, including building a new auxiliary rudder and mounting bracket and the big 3/8 or they're 10mm actually, was what I could get in Kenya. Stainless steel bolts to bolt it to the transom and all that stuff together. The piece of wood, the epoxy, fairing, fiberglass, paint, all that together is less than $1,000. You know, and the wind vane is set up less than $100. So you're talking $1,000, $1,100 to build a self-steering system that will work if there's enough wind for the boat to sail. That means anything from about 5 knots, 4 or 5 knots up, apparent wind strength, and will easily sail the boat up to 25, 30, 35 knots of wind, depending on your course of sail. My boat gets a little squirrely off on a broad reach because I have a lot of windage aft, and the wind tends to push the transom around, which you could interpret as being too much weather helm. But I can't control that with sails. Even putting a small storm jib or my smallest jib up on the head stay the boat will still tend to develop what appears to be weather helm, but I think it's from the wind pushing on the aft part of the boat. Anyway, remember also that you got to learn how to sail your boat. You got to learn how to balance the helm with the sail trim. This is especially important off the wind, because if you use the main rudder to put in either weather or lee helm and the apparent wind strength changes, then the boat will go off course. Anyway, I hope this helps you adventurous types out there that don't have deep pockets like me. It's a good system, it's reliable, it's strong, it's inexpensive, and it works. And it'll save you, or it can save you, thousands of dollars that you could use on other things on the boat, or to set sails and sail off into the sunset. Bye for now.